The Chicago White Sox did not have any representation in the All-Star game on Tuesday as Luis Robert Jr. was unavailable due to tightness in his right calf that he suffered during the home run derby. Is it something to worry about or something to just dismiss? The MLB draft concluded and the White Sox added more pitching, more trade deadline possibilities, and Lucas Giolito might just need a change of scenery.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. After the break, our White Sox will head to Atlanta to take on the Braves. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search a White Sox. So, Home Run Derby gave us a little bit of break from the 16 games under 500, the dismal first half, I guess you should say, for the Chicago White Sox. Was looking forward to seeing, probably limited action, but see what Robert Jr. could do in the actual game. And that did not happen per the Chicago White Sox on Tuesday afternoon. During the first round of Monday's Home Run Derby, Luis Robert felt tightness in his right calf. He underwent an MRI in Seattle and is listed as day-to-day. Robert will not play in Tuesday's All-Star game as precaution and will be evaluated again before the season restarts Friday in Atlanta. Absolutely not what you wanted to read and hear about. Wow. I know I overreacted, that's for sure, but I also wasn't too surprised, right? That's how we're conditioned as White Sox fans these days. But Jesse Rogers of ESPN had this from Luis Robert Jr. I felt tightness in my right calf during the first round of Monday's Home Run Derby, but it didn't affect my performance in the second round. I feel good today. It isn't anything serious, but as a precaution, we decided that the best for me was to not play in Tuesday night's All-Star game. It is disappointing, but the most important thing for me is to be healthy and ready for Friday when we start the second half. I am sure I'll be 100% by Friday. So I really thought he would do everything in his power to get into the game on Tuesday, just to showcase himself even more. I think he was happy with his first round performance. I mean, he hit that bomb, that 484 bomb. I believe it was then in the second round, and fell, of course, and didn't advance. And it looked like he just ran out of gas. Maybe that that calf issue was affecting his lower half, because it looked like he was just spraying singles and line drives. He didn't look like the same Luis Robert Jr. from the first round, but he put himself on the map. If he wasn't already on the map in baseball fans' eyes and organizations all over MLB in their eyes, he made a name for himself on Monday. And I thought definitely he will, whatever he can do, try to get in the game on Tuesday. And again, showcase another opportunity to get national exposure, but that was not the case. Again, not terribly surprised. Again, you're just kind of assuming like he's probably going to pull like an oblique or a back issue, over swinging. But, he wants to enjoy himself. He might not have another opportunity to be in a home run derby. And again, a chance to build his brand, go ahead and do it. So are the White Sox cursed? I'm sure you've seen this, other people talking about how once the Goose Island Goose, if you ever had a chance to see this way out there in the right field concourse by that Goose Island train car that they've set out, once the Goose Island Goose was removed from that right field area, things have not been the same. I don't think I want to go down that path of are the White Sox cursed, but something is going on with this team. It absolutely has. Especially the last couple of years. And then you look at 2020, it's like we had the team. It looked like they were primed to really make some serious noise. We got shortchanged with that. And obviously bigger things going on beyond baseball in the world and things of health standpoint than just a 60 game season. But you just feel like, oh man, that could have been more for the White Sox. And then you had 2021 bounced early in the playoffs, and then everything that has gone on in 2022 and now this season. And then individually with different players that have had to be shut down since the rebuild began and go through serious procedures, health issues, injuries. We just have not had complete seasons from so many guys that were going to be a factor on this White Sox team. So hopefully it's not an overreaction. Hopefully it's just really, he felt something and he doesn't want to aggravate it anymore. And we'll see what happens on Friday in Atlanta. So I didn't watch much of all of the All-Star game on Tuesday. I'm going to be honest with you. I was really just going to check in to see what happened with Luis Robert Jr. 1989. I was thinking about this the other day. 1989 was my first All-Star game that I really remember sitting down, being so excited. I cannot wait to see this, from the beginning to the end. And you had Bo Jackson and Wade Boggs going back to back. Again, these guys that you kind of just got highlights from. You weren't watching games unless the Sox were playing them. You had the baseball cards and all that kind of stuff. And for them to see these guys do and live up to the hype in an All-Star game, it was just absolutely awesome. Harold Baines represented the White Sox and started at DH that game. And then you look at the White Sox and what they've meant to the All-Star game throughout history. First All-Star game ever back in 1933 at Comiskey Park. Sox also hosted in 1950. 1983. And then 20 years ago, the Sox hosted the 2003 All-Star game. Esteban Loaiza started the game. You remember that, gentlemen? Carl Everett and Maglio Ordonez also represented the White Sox. And then in terms of starters, the Sox have not had a lot of starters throughout history. Tim Anderson started last year at shortstop, but starters are few and far between. Only 11 years in my lifetime have there been White Sox starters. I'm 42, so 11 of those 42 years have seen starters. You go since 1980, Fisk back-to-back years. He started in 1981 and 1982. Frank Thomas had back-to-back starts at first base, 1994, 1995. Burley started the game in 2005. Sale started in 2015. Of course, Loaiza in 2003. Jose Abreu started at first base in 2018. I was surprised to find out. I thought Robin Ventura might have started a game at third. He only made one All-Star game in a White Sox uniform, 1992, and it was not as a starter. I found that very surprising when I was going through some of this. You've got to go back to 1959 to find a year when the White Sox had two starters, Luis Aparicio and Nellie Fox. They were your shortstop, second base combo. This is when there were two All-Star games per season. They did that for a while. So I wanted to revisit a conversation I had with my co-host on the weekly Chicago White Sox podcast, Good Guys Talk Back. Pat Hester brought something up to me about, what would it take for the White Sox to maybe stand pat at the deadline? If they came out of the break and something happened, a few things happened, maybe they hold off from selling off. Maybe they try to really either stay put, maybe add, believe it or not, that sounds crazy. What would it take in these 15 games between break and trade deadline? And he mentioned last year's starter, Tim Anderson. The way Tim Anderson goes, the White Sox go. You've heard this over the last several years. What if Tim Anderson got absolutely hot, white hot, scorching hot out of the break? Do you shift the focus and try to keep things together? And, my answer, and I've thought about this a little bit since we last recorded our episode on Sunday night. I still stand with my answer of, what? It wouldn't just be one player like Tim Anderson getting hot. It would have to be, 4 or 5 players getting really hot. And then the team going on a roll. I mean, you've got 15 games, after the break and then to the trade deadline. I mean, they'd have to go, 12 of 15, something like that, 10 of 15. I don't even know if that would do it, maybe. But I think still the ship has sailed a bit. I think decisions probably already have been made. Phone calls are coming in and have been coming in to Rick Hahn, to the front office. They've been talking about it. This is the perfect time to do it during this all-star break. You've got 3 in Atlanta when play resumes, then 3 in New York against the Mets, 3 in Minnesota. So you're on the road for the first 9 games. And then you come home, 2 against the Cubs, and then 4 against Cleveland on the South side. And then is your trade deadline. The White Sox found another catcher and found a player from France in the 3rd day of the draft. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look good. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And I am telling you, I swear by these shorts. They are extremely comfortable. You can wear them a couple days in a row if you'd like. Free to move, whatever you're doing, whether you're going out for a hike, you're just lounging around doing some yard work. I mean, they are fantastic. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for that Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Our Chicago White Sox face off against the Atlanta Braves on Friday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. So a little bit more on this MLB draft that just concluded on Tuesday. The White Sox drafted LSU right-hander Grant Taylor with the number 50 first pick in the 2nd round. So the Sox were pretty excited about this 1-2 punch, Gonzalez and Taylor. We felt like we landed 2 first-rounders. Unfortunately, Grant had Tommy John surgery in February. There were times this fall at LSU where Grant was showing us first-round ability. We feel ecstatic to land him in the 2nd round. In the 7th round, the White Sox selected George Walkow, an outfielder from Downers Grove North, a hometown boy. He's an early graduate from high school, a local kid, Shirley said during a conference call on Monday. Mike Shirley, that is. It's a significant ceiling. This is big-time power, a big-time athlete. We feel like we're only tapping the surface of what he may become. George Wolkow, I think, is ready to start his professional career. The White Sox are welcoming that opportunity and truly excited about the upside he brings. So the Sox made a bunch of picks on Tuesday. With the 11th round, they took second baseman out of Oregon, Riku Nishida. In the 12th round, they took right-handed pitcher Matthias Lacombe out of Arizona, but we'll talk a little bit more about him in a bit. Ryan Galini from Wofford, South Carolina. That was a third baseman. Second baseman, Edric Felix out of Florida Coast. Couple more right-handed pitchers. A outfielder from Cal State Fullerton, another infielder, Mikey Kane from Oregon State, which I believe is where Nick Madrigal went. Sorry, I brought that name up. And then you've got another catcher, Weston Emberley out of Columbia. I'm interested about these catchers. I'm interested to see what James Fox will say when we talk to him from Future Sox. Again, I feel like the depth for the catcher position has been just so weak for so many years for the Chicago White Sox. So is this something, or are they just taking a guy that they really like their bat like they did with Collins a few years ago? So Sox wrap things up. I did hear from Ian Eskridge from White Sox Daily. This is what he had to say about Gonzalez. He said, I like Gonzalez, just not at 15. He's a little slow. That said, he plays a very good defense because he is efficient with his movement and anticipates well. That said, the walk rate and power are superb. Again, great stuff that Ian Eskridge and Danny Miller do over there at White Sox Daily. Sam Dykstra of MLB Pipeline talking about that 15 pick from the White Sox, Matthias Lacombe. Came out of an Arizona college, but a native of France. Lacombe is a native of France with experience with Pôle France baseball and the French national team. He came stateside to pitch in junior college and shows some decent velocity in the 90 to 95 mile per hour range. He also possesses a 77 to 83 mile per hour slider that remains inconsistent, but he seemed to be growing into himself as the 2023 season wore on. He has a commitment to Louisiana Lafayette if he doesn't join the White Sox. Sox starting pitching and also relievers could be attractive to other teams, and why Giolito might just need to get away. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. So more trade deadline stuff, specifically some stuff from John Heyman once again. Lucas Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez, and Kenyon Middleton, all of whom are soon to be free agents, are the most likely to be dealt, according to Heyman. Giolito, 28 years old, is expected to fetch the most interest on the trade market, with the Cincinnati Reds and Texas Rangers among the early suitors for the former All-Star, who has reestablished himself as the ace on the White Sox pitching staff this season. Remember, Rangers were also interested in Lance Lynn. Giolito has a 6-5 record this year to go along with his 3.45 ERA, 2.9 WAR over 112 innings. The Los Angeles Dodgers are also a potential destination, as they'll be looking to shore up a rotation that just lost Dustin May to season-ending elbow surgery. Heyman suggests the Reds and Rangers could check in Giolito, Cincinnati GM Nick Kroll has gone on record about a desire to add pitching. The NL Central leading club is very likely to upgrade a starting staff that's presently without Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. Texas has gotten strong results out of their rotation, but could look to add some depth. Giolito is also going through some personal stuff right now as well. Chicago White Sox pitcher Giolito announced on Instagram he and his wife are getting split split up during Tuesday's home run derby. Giolito appeared to turn his comments off under the post as he claimed the two came to a mutual agreement. Ariana and I have made the difficult but mutual decision to amicably end our marriage. After thoughtful consideration and discussions, we have chosen to follow separate paths while maintaining the bond we have nurtured over the years. So, with Lucas Giolito here, maybe, I can't even begin to imagine what he's going through and how long this has been, processing. It's all for him and, his family, his personal world, but maybe he really just needs a change of scenery. Maybe that's exactly what he needs. I've heard the Houston Astros, also the Philadelphia Phillies have also shown some interest. Folks, that'll do it. Thanks so much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Any questions or comments you have, get them in at lockedonsox@gmail.com. Our White Sox take on the Atlanta Braves on Friday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. Hey, everydayers, you know who you are. On the next episode, I will talk with James Fox from Future Sox about what to get excited about regarding what the White Sox did in the MLB draft. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.